Hi everyone, my name is Vince Gelman. Thank you for joining me today. I want to speak about the destructive cycle that we are in at the moment. And I'm going to say something a little different than what you're likely hearing out there. Because what we're hearing a lot of is, oh my God, they are destroying our democracy. They are destroying our democracy. What I want to say to you is that this destruction actually needs to happen, number one. Number two is that it's a destructive cycle. It is not a destruction that is going to lead to a complete demise of our humanity, of our humaneness, of our future. It is a cycle. And we are going to pass through this cycle. Number three, I want to offer to you that this destructive cycle that we are in, as much as it's being initiated by dark forces, it serves a higher purpose. And there are light forces that are greatly involved in this cycle, and that the dark and the light are much more interwoven than we can imagine, that in fact they're working as one harmonious system. It just seems like it's about the dark forces. They are destroying our democracy. They are hijacking our food system. They are causing inflation. They are creating wars. They are making us more dependent. They are ushering in a universal basic income system. They are ushering in a social credit system. They want to make us dependent. They want to enslave us. They want to ultimately control us on all levels and hold power, hold dominion. Obviously, it seems that way, doesn't it? It's very normal to have a perspective that, oh my God, they are destroying everything. They are destroying everything. So let me take a step back and revisit the word cycle. This is a cycle. And destruction is one side of the coin, and the other side of the coin is creation. Destruction and creation are two sides of the same coin. So I invite you to see both sides of the coin. There's not just destruction taking place, but creation is also in the works. Creation is also in the works. And that destruction and creation have long been a necessary evolutionary impulse, a necessary evolutionary impetus, going back in time, going back to the ice ages, going back to the cataclysmic events that we've had, where there's been great heat waves, we've had meteorites crashing on Earth, we've had great species extinction. We can look at forest fires and how natural forest fires, what they do is they destroy trees. The trees then replenish the soil and contribute to biodiversity. We can look to our bodies and how every day countless cells, I think it's 10 to the 11th cells, huge numbers of cells die, and that cell destruction in our body is necessary for regeneration and growth in our physical form. We can look to the caterpillar, and that there's no butterfly without the death, the destruction of the caterpillar. There's no beautiful butterfly without that death. We can look to the seasons. We have the season of destruction, which is fall, which leads, and that's fall, that's things falling apart, which leads to the very dark season, the dark night of the soul, that winter symbolizes, which then moves us into spring, the time of rebirth, the time of rejuvenation, and then that moves us into summer, and of course back to fall again. So there's that cycle of destruction and creation. We can look to Jesus, and again, I want to remind you that I'm not a religious person, but I do love Jesus, and I work closely with Jesus in my online healing and activation ceremonies. And so Jesus is very much connected in my heart, very much part of my soul. And Jesus' great teaching in his public demonstration, his colossal public demonstration, was that there is no resurrection, there is no ascension without the crucifixion, without the death. And so we can also look to for instance, we can go to Africa and we can see the way that the lion interacts with the hyena, and the hyena interacts with the leopard, and how they interact with the hippopotamus and the giraffe and the crocs, and how that's a cooperative system of death and rebirth, of death and growth. And as hard as it is to watch sometimes, because I do watch a lot of nature programs, and I do find that sometimes it can be almost a bit traumatizing watching them. It's like watching a violent horror movie, the way that lions steal leopard cubs and leopards steal lion cubs, and it's a lot of violence going on. There's a lot of distress, there's a lot of pain amongst these beautiful animals, but it's a system of cooperation. As much as we were influenced by Darwinism and the idea of competition, that's within Mother Nature. What we have is a perfect harmonious system of cooperation, where death feeds life in our body. Death feeds life in the cocoon womb of the caterpillar. Death feeds life. That tomb is a womb. There's a death and there's a birth. So death feeds life. 3 words, death feeds life. I invite you to remember those 3 words, because it's very easy to just see, oh, everything is being destroyed, and just looking at the death without looking at that there's actually a rebirth taking place. And of course, when we focus so much on the dark forces, and how the dark forces are purposely, intentionally destroying things, they want to destroy. Of course, when we focus on their nefarious intentions, it's natural to just think about death, and where is this leading us? Where is this going to lead my children and my grandchildren? Where is this going to lead Mother Earth, us as a people? So yes, there is a disorder, and yes, the dark forces are creating purposely a disorder because they want to usher in a new world order. That's a time-tested totalitarian strategy, where they create a crisis and then they capitalize on that crisis. And so it's crisis capitalism. So this is part of their playbook going back in time. And so they want to usher in a new world order. They want to create so much disorder that we become very disempowered, very afraid, and then they offer us a solution which ultimately ushers in the digital dictatorship and the social credit system, where they're tracking us on our smartphones. So what I want you to consider is that, again, this is a necessary destructive process. This is a necessary destructive process because death feeds life. And this death is ultimately loosening us from a system that has been much more dysfunctional than people can imagine. So when the right-wing media of the United States, who are doing a fabulous job at naming the dark agenda, they have spine, they have courage, I admire them, they're doing incredible work, they're speaking truth to power much more than the left-wing media. But when they say they are destroying our democracy, because this is something we're hearing the journalists and the broadcasters of the right-wing media say often, they are destroying our democracy. When they say that, we need to consider how much of a democracy we've actually been living in. How much of a democracy have we been living in? Yes, compared to North Korea, compared to China, compared to Iran, compared to Saudi Arabia, we certainly have had a lot more democratic freedoms, haven't we? We've been able to have much more freedom of speech. but it hasn't been as much of a democracy as one might think. We've actually been much more controlled, much more manipulated than we can imagine. Take, for instance, our school system. I speak a lot about the school system in my videos. That's because I spent many, many years doing workshops, leading workshops and keynotes for teachers across Canada. Our school system, if you look carefully at it, if you study the history, was never designed to foster creativity. It was designed to foster compliance, conformity, and obedience. There was a study actually that showed that children in elementary school who were the most creative garnered the least amount of favoritism from their teachers. Children who were the most creative garnered the least amount of favoritism from their school teachers. You might have a story from your childhood where you might have gotten in trouble, punished in school for thinking too much outside the box, for being too imaginative. You see, for the ruling elite, imagination is a threat. Creativity is a threat. Intuition is a threat. Nuance, creative thinking is a threat. That is why the school system has taught us what to think, but not how to think. It has been a system of control. It's about molding children to become cogs to feed their economy. So this is one example of how it seems like a normal system and it seems like it's part of a healthy democracy, but the school system is highly, highly dysfunctional. It always has been dysfunctional. And that doesn't mean that it's not filled with awesome, loving, well-intentioned teachers. I spoke to thousands of them, and they're lovely, lovely people who loved learning and loved children. But they were working in a much more corrupted system than they can possibly imagine. We are now waking up to the extent that our entertainment industry has been a propaganda arm, like the media. It has been a propaganda arm for the ruling elites to make us afraid, to make us divided. I mean, video games are designed to pervert the mind, to distort the mind of children. Look at our tax revenue, our hard-earned tax revenue. That money is going to the government. The government hands it over to corporations, and those corporations do all sorts of nefarious things with that money. How much of our tax revenue is actually being put to good, and how much of it is actually being put to negative, harmful things? Look at our food supply. Look at how toxic it's become, especially since the 90s when chemical spraying went up to an entirely different level. The amount of illness, autoimmune illness, all sorts of illness, neurological illness it's gone way up since the mid-90s because spraying just went up during that time so much. That spraying that goes into our soil and into the water table, into our rivers, into the ocean, going up into the clouds, down in rain, into our land, into organic farms, poisoning our food, causing all sorts of illness. There's a lot of dark minds behind this. And so it may seem normal, but it's actually far more dysfunctional than we can imagine. Far more dysfunctional than we can imagine. So, back to the word democracy. Is this a democracy we're meant to keep? You see, many people are waking up on the planet right now. They're seeing the dark agenda, they're seeing what's going on, but what they're simultaneously saying is, give me back my democracy. Stop destroying it. You're destroying our democracy. They're destroying our democracy. But this democracy, this dream of normal, is meant to be destroyed now, everyone. It is meant to be destroyed. Thank God it's being destroyed. It is part of a larger evolutionary cycle. It is part of a larger ending that we are in. We are at a great ending. We've been in a long, dark age, everyone. That dark age started approximately 5,000 years ago. And that dark age has been necessary for evolution. It's been a very difficult period the last 5,000 years with immense suffering. But it's time. We are ready to graduate from that school of suffering. We're ready to graduate from that school of pain. Our children deserve this, everyone. I'm a huge advocate for the well-being of our children, if you know my work. Our children deserve so much more now. Our animals deserve so much more now. Mother Earth deserves so much more now. This toxicity needs to end. It needs to be destroyed. And it's not going to be the type of destruction that leads to a full-on totalitarian takeover, a full-on digital dictatorship. This is not where this is ultimately going. It's leading to our rebirth. What we're experiencing right now are labor pains, everyone. They're labor pains. This needs to be experienced. It's part of it. And yes, it is hard. I'm in no way discounting the amount of suffering out there. I'm in no way discounting the amount of pain, the amount of loss. There's been huge suffering, and there will continue to be suffering. There's going to be a huge amount of heartbreak. But we are in an awakening now, everyone. And part of waking up is realizing this, that the world will never, ever, ever give you what you want. The world will never, ever give you what you want, and that includes democracy. It will never give you what you want. Only an open heart can. Only an open heart can. But sometimes that means we need to have heartbreak. And that's what's happening across the world increasingly, is heartbreak, and there's going to be a continuation of immense heartbreak, especially as people realize the truth of what's going on. The amount of lies, the abuses of power. There's going to be huge heartbreak. And with that heartbreak, with enough time, enough healing support, from heartbreak, there's a breakthrough. And then there's a breaking open and a breaking free. Heartbreak creates an opening. And that's what's happening now. We're in this destructive period. There's actually an opening that is occurring. When things fall apart, when the infrastructure, the apparatus of what we call normal starts to fall apart, when the cracks come in, and I have the light beams coming right now, when those cracks come, light shines through. When the cracks start to open, the cracks of normal, the cracks of what we thought true, the cracks of the life that we thought we wanted, when that falls apart, when the cracks come, then light can finally shine through. Truth can finally shine through. A higher truth, a higher awareness, a higher consciousness, love. Love finally shines through. We are awakening to love. The dream of normal is very compelling. The dream of the democracy is very compelling. I'm not against democracy. I support democratic values. But what I'm saying is that there's still a dream within that keeps us asleep. I want another cheeseburger. I want to go out to my cottage. I want to go on my boat. I want to go out to the pub again. Give me back my normal, but that's not what you want. The world can't give you what you want. Normal can't give you what you want. You didn't come here to fall asleep to normal. You didn't come here to stay asleep in normal. You came here to wake up. That's what this lifetime is about. You came to wake up from the dream of normal. You came to experience so much more. You deserve more. We all deserve more. So when you hear right-wing media, or even some of our really funny, awesome satirists, the ones on YouTube who are calling it out, that are speaking truth to power, they're doing such important work. I learn a lot from them, and I watch them almost daily. When you watch right-wing media, when you watch these amazing truth tellers speak up, just be aware of if you find yourself getting caught up in their narrative, which is they are destroying our democracy, and getting caught up in an us versus them polarity. In other words, don't get caught up in the fear, and remember the 3 words: death feeds life, and that this is all for a larger rebirth, and that this is part of a destructive cycle that we're in, and that the destruction is necessary, and that the destruction, even though it's being so much initiated by the dark forces, it's serving a higher purpose. It's serving a higher purpose. Because it's time. We are here to wake up to the golden age. There's a golden age upon us. There's a new dawn calling us. And there's a growing legion of light workers on this planet who are contributing to our global awakening. And there are a huge number of master souls on this planet here for this time. There's lots of forces at play, lots of cosmic forces at play. There's a divine plan. But those who are truly awake honor and respect this destruction as necessary and not separate from the larger plan. It is interwoven into the larger plan of rebirth. Paradox is important. Having a paradoxical view on things. Paradox is so important, along with being able to think with a level of complexity and nuance. Complexity, nuance, paradox. Those are 3 things that are important right now. To balance this all, to see the subtlety of what's going on, to not have an either-or perspective, but a both-and. A both-and. Yes, they are playing a huge role in destroying things, and is part of a larger cosmic picture of awakening. It is a both-and. It is a both-and. And so when you watch these different awesome truth tellers on YouTube, on TV, wherever they may be, careful not to slip into polarity thinking. Careful not to slip into this or this. Careful not to get caught up in us versus them, victim versus perpetrator, dualistic consciousness. We are leaving dualism. We are leaving dualistic consciousness. We are moving into oneness. Oneness. And so weave the destruction into the creation. See them as one. See them as one. See them as one. So I leave that with you. And I hope that feeds you, this information that I'm giving you. And if you need support with your healing and empowerment journey, in case you don't know, I lead online healing and activation ceremonies weekly. Usually they're weekly. The next one is going to be on Sunday, August 28th at noon Pacific. We'll be working with the Sapphire Ray, the Archangelic Sapphire Ray. The ceremony is called Sapphire Ray of Hope. It's 75 minutes long, 77 Canadian. I'll put a link in the description. If you like this video, please like it, share it, subscribe, click notifications, leave your comments. And thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being with me on this journey. It's a very heroic journey that we're on together. Take good care.